This is the third module in our course on MIS development. We'll be covering several aspects in terms of how the management information systems are developed in this course. In this video, I will talk about the systems analysis and the selection of projects aspect. Subsequently, the MIS design, which is quite involved topic. I'll probably make one or two videos. And then we have standalone topics on project risks that I intend to have a live session, and information security can be a video. So this will be the broad coverage. Now, and the whole purpose of this module is to be able to understand how this process of implementation of an IT project takes place. We have already understood what MIS does in an organization and what different technology options are available. But now it comes to designing and coming up with a solution. So let's start with this system analysis. We do a few activities in this. Number one is we define the business problem. So if I take examples from the exercises given to you in previous class about different groups had different exercises, I'll share some of them. So you had the medical representatives tracking problem. The problem there was that probably the time of MR was not productively utilized, and the management did not know whether they are wasting their time or can they be made more efficient. Similarly, the online teaching or online classes, all of you can imagine, I mean, it could be probably because of the pandemic, which was a business problem, that you want to continue the business operations in spite of people not physically being present. The garment making unit, one could think of them as, probably they are running into losses, or they don't know what their real sort of numbers are, and therefore they wanted to move to an electronic measurement or bookkeeping. And a toy maker and the hotel business. So all of them had some problem or the other. And the not all problems would have solutions in IT. Okay, so I'm not claiming that MIS is one-stop solution to every problem that a business can have, but what is needed is when we do a systems analysis, so that can be done in any situation, and you just try to identify what are the reasons behind the problem. So in case of the toy maker, it could be that they are not able to reach a broad base of customers, and therefore they want to sell online, right? The e-commerce problem. So the solution there would be to start, I mean, there could be multiple solutions. One of them could be that you increase the marketing budget, have a brand ambassador, start tying up with the places where people buy toys, which are not only stores. People may buy these things in other locations. So all those are possible solutions, but one of the solutions is to start selling online. And once you come up with a solution which has an IT element, then the system analysis is used to identify what are the information requirements to solve the problem. So there may be requirements related to information gathering, as in the case of the pharma problem, the medical representatives, where the issue was essentially you want to track their performance, which is an information gathering problem. Some places it may be a problem of information processing, as in the case of garment maker. They have the data, they have the invoices, bills, and books and other things, but they want to process it and keep it in an electronic format. So it could be an information processing problem, or sometimes it can also be an information dissemination problem, where you want to tell everybody that or distribute the information. So basically system analysis is aimed at converting the business problem into the IT solution, where your IT solution can serve the business problem, which may be a much bigger problem, and you fit in as a small element in the whole issue. So this is, it's a quite exciting and challenging area in business management, and more so in last probably 20 to 30 years, where lot of businesses have moved a lot of their processes to automation or to computerization. And that's where companies such as Computer Science Corporation or Infosys or IBM or Accenture, they make their money from basically this activity. So this is a lucrative, you can say, business or lucrative job market. Most people in the IT world are essentially trying to solve this in the Indian IT sector. So there are two related things which I also want to share. One is the business process reengineering, which is a role given to or an assignment or a project given to most of the IT companies. They look at an existing problem, as is called as it's called as is, and then you create a solution which will be a to be solution. So currently you may be running the business in a certain way, and you may want to uh, raise it to another level and start operating at that level with maybe better features or faster speed, less time, and less resources, etc. So we have seen this happen in so many industries. The banking sector used to operate in a certain way in the past, and today it operates in a completely different way. All of that has been achieved through business process reengineering. So, and within that, where people like you and me come in, is the business analyst role, where you are translating the business requirements and giving it to the product development or programming team. So an MBA is recruited by all these Accenture, TCS, and IBM, and so on, in this business analyst role, or sometimes it's called as a systems analyst role. But effectively what they are doing is understanding those first four steps, understanding what the business problem is and where IT can come in and solve their problem. And you may be working on any technology. It may be a Salesforce, it may be on databases, it may be on any of these technologies, but effectively the MBA person is uh, uh, his or her job is to translate business requirements and give it to the development team or the programming team, who will create a solution, who will write the code which will meet these requirements. Right? So that's an essential, means a starting point of this uh, development exercise or a project. Now, what all different types of projects we see in terms of, so there is something, yeah, risks here at the bottom. We see four, categories. Technically, it's a continuum, but we have tried to classify them. At the low end of the spectrum, where you have low risks and low returns also, is the automation, where you have an existing process which you are trying to automate and achieve some benefits of computerization and automation through this. An example I can think of is, you must have visited any mall for watching a movie or eating something or purchasing something. So when you go to the parking, sometimes you have the traditional parking system, where the person with a yellow colored book will come, write your vehicle number, tear off the page and give it to you, collect the money at that time or collect at the time of returning, which is a purely manual system. But some places you have an automated system where the that writing part has been done by a computer, and either an operator with a computer is sitting and entering the vehicle number, and then a ticket comes out with barcode. which you keep it on your car, and then at the time of leaving you show that ticket or scan that ticket, and it displays how much time you were inside, and based on that what is the amount to be paid, which is a slightly sophisticated system, but the process is still the same. Someone gives you a token, and then the token mentions all these vehicle number, time of entry, date of entry, and all that, and at the time of exit the computer calculates how much is payable, which you pay and you leave. This is somewhat of an improvement over the earlier system, because I may be able to minimize mistakes. I may be able to charge people per hour rather than charging them per entry and exit, because I am now able to calculate exact thing. I may be able to save or avoid some uh, malpractices that may be happening. The parking attendants, typically they are low paid people, so they tend to sort of divert some of these things and see if they can make some money in this. So they will not tier a new token every time. They may want to sort of recirculate the tokens. So some such things happen, which can be avoided through the automation, because everything is tracked now. But if you look at the process, it is still the same. There is no change. Next, automation benefits, but in certain ways it may not benefit to a great extent. So the next level is what the book calls is the rationalization, in which we try to see if resources are deployed in the right way. Can I reduce manpower somewhere? Can I do some adjustment here or there? So here, just taking this parking type of an example to the next stage, which is the toll booths on highways. So there also, there were the earlier manual systems, and which are still used in some smaller places like a bridge or smaller highways and smaller roads. But most other places they have gone to automation. But a couple of years ago, we started this system of FASTag. What FASTag does is, now it uh, reads directly from the RFID tag on your vehicle. Usually it's a car or a truck or any other four-wheeler, and it charges to your vehicle or that FASTag directly. So money gets debited directly from your bank account. uh, so you don't need any person anymore. So now in a toll booth which is far away, and you have uh, uh, risk of safety of people as well as safety of the money that is getting collected. So both those things are kind of taken care of by this FASTag type of a system. So that's one way of a rationalization of your resources, and the system is doing a little more than automation. It's not pure automation. You have also tried to see if your resources are judiciously being used. So now you no longer need, if you have 10 different lanes, you don't need 10 operators. You probably need maybe one or two supervisors who will be there just to see in case something goes wrong, how can they fix it, and maybe one or two people who are manual toll collector loan lanes are still going on. So that way you have now kind of rationalized the whole place. And this has also again happened in most of our banking, insurance, and most such retail facing locations, where um, manpower and sometimes other resources also have been rationalized. The next step is this re-engineering, which we saw on the previous slide also, the business process re-engineering. What happens in this is, now we are looking at the whole process or the whole uh, way of doing business once again, and seeing if we can take benefit from IT and redesign the process, and don't do the business in the old way. So you would have seen the electricity bill payment. So in the past, you had to physically go and pay the bill. Cashier would collect cash. Only if it was above a certain value, then they would collect a check. Otherwise, check would not be accepted. And uh, then they'll sort of give you a receipt that you have paid so and so money. Then the cashier will at the end of the day take all that cash, go and deposit into a bank, and sort of put it in the bank account of the utility company, that is electricity company or water company and so on. So here there is a lot of work for the person, and this doesn't happen at one office. I mean, you may be having hundreds of locations where you are supplying utility, electricity. Every location you need to keep one employee who will do all this work, because that person has to and they have to then maintain their office hours. If that person is on leave, then you will have to find a replacement. Sometimes that person comes late, sometimes that person is there, but the something is not working. Maybe they don't have bill book, or they don't have change. So all those issues were there, and it is a tedious process, and managing that process itself takes a lot of efforts for middle management. So then uh, as you see these days, most of us pay electricity bills online through apps or such as these payment wallets, or through banks or credit cards, or through the website of the company. In fact, a lot of us just put that direct debit facility. You just set it once and it keeps deducting every month, because whatever the bill amount comes, I have to pay it. Otherwise, my connection will get severed. So if there is an issue, I will again raise it up later. But most of us have that direct debit type of a situation. So this is an example of re-engineering, where the utility company basically thought through that what all are my important steps. That cashier collecting money and then going and depositing is not a great or most critical thing. My business is to provide electricity. That collection of money should not take such an effort. So therefore they then came up with this automation and online payment and all that, and through which now you have reduced the burden on all the staff, and you no longer have to keep so many people. You may probably have to keep much fewer people, and the process is much simpler. I'll not get into the details, but you go to the website, you get to know how much is the amount. You make a payment, you click on the payment link, it deducts, takes you to the bank website. Then after that point, it is the bank's headache, but banks sorts it out, deposits the amount in your account, and gives a confirmation to the customer. So including knowing the bill amount, or including providing that bill to the customer, is also now kind of a sort of taken in one step. It's simplified, and it's taken away from human beings, or the clerk who is doing the billing. So that is an example of re-engineering. We have seen that happen in ticket booking, be it railway ticket booking through IRCTC or other sites, or it could be aeroplane ticket bookings or bus ticket bookings. All these places, the transport company has simplified their processes and given a lot of choice in the hands of the buyer. They can directly go to the website, or they can get these things. So these are sort of one examples, but there is one more example that I want to give here. A lot of you may not be aware of it, but you can sort of search more about it on the internet. The Passport Seva Kendra. The whole concept of applying passport. So I can speak from experience, because my first passport was through traditional channel, where you had to go to the regional passport office, and it would be a nightmare, because it's like a typical government office with some 30-40 different types of departments and tables, and you don't know what is where. There is no clear instruction. Everybody is just running here and there, and you ultimately end up catching some agent and give him some 2000 3000 rupees, and plead him that अरे मेरा काम करा दो इतना. In contrast, now what the government has done, they have for last almost 15 years, I think this is in operation, they have outsourced this activity. Last time I checked, it was with the TCS. So they operate these Passport Seva Kendras, and they have clear workflows first step is you give your documents, then they get scanned. Second step is you give your biometric. Third step is, and then you pay the fees. By the time the documents you submitted, they get scrutinized. And then at the third stage, if there is any question, they will ask you those or stop your process. If there are no questions, they'll just accept and tell you, ठीक है, bye bye, आपको post में मिल जाएगा. They'll send your passport by post. So it's that simple, and the whole process, I mean, I have seen it personally. It happens within 4 or 5 days. So you go and apply. That takes about maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and after that it comes by post in 4th day or 5th day. In contrast, my first passport took 45 days. So that, and that was also kind of, because I was in IIT, and they had good means relationships with the passport office and all. Both were central organizations. There was no police checking and all those things. Nothing happened. So that way it was much easier. There are people who just keep waiting and waiting, and the passport never arrives. So this is a beautiful example of how re-engineering is done on processes. You should see that there are several articles written, cases written on this whole thing. And IT plays a big role in this, and it continues to play, because if you want to have these parallel processing and multiple people taking charge of some small parts in the whole workflow, the information has to flow very smoothly from station A to station B, station B to station C. It should move smoothly. And quite often in the passport case, they also allow us to upload documents beforehand. So sitting at home itself, you can upload everything, and that way your time taken on the office is even less. So such things happen, and which is a big advantage of IT. Now the last thing is, the next type of kind of systems that we see is paradigm shifts, which are totally new, you can say, a paradigm, or totally new realm in which you are going in. The examples that I can think of is, one is Kindle. They did not do automation. They did not just, instead of someone purchasing a book, they did not take it to uh, online. They did not do only rationalization or re-engineering. They did a paradigm shift. That is, instead of people buying physical book and waiting for the book to arrive and then read, you give them book directly online, on the screen, and try to give an experience which is as close to reading a book as possible. So make the device very lightweight, make sure that it can be used at any location. You don't have to face a recharge problem. It can store many number of books and all that. So I don't want to do paid promotion on Kindle, but basically Kindle is an example of a paradigm shift. Or you can take any electronic book readers, but the name that comes to my mind is that, and that's why I shared that. So that's one example of paradigm shift. Another one I can think of is this UPI, Unified Payment Interface, in India. What it does is, it makes transactions of small value between any two people, which can be a merchant and a buyer, or it can be two individuals, seamless and very fast. That means they are instantaneous, because you just scan the code, enter the amount, and enter your password, and it's done. So it's fast, it's instantaneous, it's simple. You don't have to do too many steps, and it's a very elegant solution, and it has changed the paradigm. The previous days of transferring money, having to pay through check, or having to make an online transfer, waiting for half a day for that money to get credited to the other account, and all are gone. You get an instant confirmation that yes, the money has been shared or paid. And it works even without networks. As long as your SIM card is there in the device, it will record that. So that's the level of, because these days you must have read in the news, they are even talking about offline transfers where internet or mobile connectivity is not required. So this is a paradigm shift where you are now no longer dependent on the bank's network or bank login password, and having to go to the bank website or having to write a check, wait for a check and all that. This is a totally new paradigm in payments. So what I wanted to share through this is, you need to see what your proposed solution is. Is it at the bottom, that is at the automation level? Is it a rationalization or a re-engineering, or is it a paradigm shift? And everywhere your challenges will be different and your rewards will be different. So you see the y-axis, which is talking about the returns or the rewards that you get from the implementation of this system. Automation may not give you great rewards. Rationalization, re-engineering and paradigm shift will give you great rewards, but at the same time their risks will also be higher. So automation is a low risk, low reward thing, and paradigm shift is the high risk and high reward situation.